The Hammer of Dawn wasn't designed for the Locust. It predates Emergence Day by decades and was first developed as a high-orbit deterrent during the closing years of the Pendulum Wars. The coalition of ordered governments, facing a technologically superior foe in the Union of Independent Republics, invested heavily in next-generation weapons platforms. Chief among them was the Hammer. At the core of the project was Professor Adam Phoenix, then working with the new Ephora Defense Research Institute. Drawing on advancements in directed energy, satellite communications, and targeting systems, Phoenix and his team laid the foundation for the most powerful weapon the COG would ever build. The system was conceived not as a battlefield tool, but a strategic equalizer, COG's answer to the UIR's naval and aerospace supremacy. The Hammer's core architecture relied on a constellation of weaponized satellites, each equipped with a high-energy emitter system. The network's original intent was simple: deliver instant, unstoppable force anywhere on the planet. But deployment was delayed for political and strategic reasons. No military leader wanted to be the first to unleash orbital firepower on human targets. This changed after Emergence Day. When the Locust Horde surfaced and overran entire cities within hours, the COG authorized the Hammer's first full-scale use. What had been theoretical quickly became operational. On the same day the Locust emerged, the Hammer lit up Sarah's skies and entire population centers. Although originally built to fight humans, it became the COG's most reliable weapon against the subterranean threat. But this repurposing came at a cost. The infrastructure hadn't been scaled for sustained global use, and the ethical implications were swiftly overridden by the realities of extinction. The Hammer of Dawn operates on a principle that has long been theorized in modern defense circles: satellite-based directed energy weapons. In the Gears universe, it's one of the few examples of hard science fiction, weaponry made fully operational and field deployable. Functionally, the Hammer is a high-energy beam weapon fired from a network of satellites in geostationary orbit. Each satellite houses an emitter array capable of channeling and focusing energy to a precise point on the surface. Targeting is handled from the ground. Infantry with a designator unit paint a target, relay coordinates through secure uplinks, and the satellite adjusts its aim accordingly. A few seconds later, the strike is delivered with pinpoint accuracy. This isn't a one-off beam. It sustains, tracks, and incinerates targets over several seconds. That implies a massive onboard power source. While never explicitly confirmed in lore, it's likely the satellites are powered by a miniaturized fusion reactor or advanced emulsion-based generator. No conventional solar panel array could provide the energy output seen during a live strike. Cooling is another issue. Firing a beam of that magnitude would generate immense heat. It's probable that the satellite network includes a radiative thermal management system, possibly using phase change materials or active heat dissipation via vented coolant arrays. This kind of engineering would place the Hammer's satellite network at the apex of pre-Locust War technology. The precision targeting system likely uses a combination of orbital telemetry, encrypted LiDAR, and surface mapping AI. It's responsive enough to strike moving targets, yet sensitive enough to require clear line of sight, meaning interference from buildings, atmospheric conditions, or underground positions disables the weapon. Real-world analogues exist. Projects like the Strategic Defense Initiative's Excalibur concept envision space-based lasers designed to intercept ICBMs. The difference is scale and operational status. In Gears, the Hammer was completed, launched, and, under extreme circumstances, used with lethal effectiveness. Its weakness lies not in the weapon itself, but in its dependencies. Without satellites, without uplinks, without atmospheric clarity, the Hammer is deadweight. And the COG learned that the hard way when its infrastructure began to crumble under years of total war. The Hammer of Dawn was never meant for frontline combat. It was a strategic deterrent, until the Locust forced the COG to deploy it tactically. Its first operational use came within hours of emergence day. As the Horde poured out of sinkholes, overwhelming cities in minutes, COG Command authorized planetary deployment. Entire zones were marked for orbital strikes. Civilians were caught in the fire as entire blocks were vaporized. From a military standpoint, it worked. The Locust were halted. But the price was catastrophic. Post E-Day, the hammer was integrated into infantry operations. COG soldiers used compact target designators to call in focused strikes. This gave ground units a powerful tool for disabling enemy armor, eradicating entrenched positions, or sealing emergence holes. Unlike conventional artillery, the hammer offered surgical strikes with near instant effect. However, it had clear operational limits. It couldn't penetrate subterranean layers, rendering it useless against most of the Locust's tunnel systems. It also required satellite access and clear skies. Storms, urban terrain, and jammers could all break the uplink between designator and satellite. In practical terms, this meant that in-cave engagements or underground missions had to proceed without hammer support. In Gears of War 1, the hammer was instrumental in the assault on the Locust stronghold at the Tomb of the Unknowns. In Gears 3, it was disabled for most of the campaign, a result of lost uplinks and fragmented infrastructure. And in Gears 5, the reactivation of surviving satellites becomes a critical plot point, with Baird working to bring the system back online. Its reintroduction highlights both the weapon's continued relevance and its fragility. Notably, the hammer's destructive power made it unsuitable for defensive scenarios in populated zones. A single misfire could level an entire block. This forced the COG to rely on more traditional firepower when collateral damage wasn't an option. Tactically, the hammer was a scalpel that required orbital conditions to remain viable. Against open field threats or large targets, it was unmatched. But once the Locust adapted, going underground, using krill storms, or deploying interference tech, its battlefield dominance declined sharply. The Hammer of Dawn's strength wasn't just in its beam, it was in its infrastructure. During the Pendulum Wars, the COG launched a classified series of orbital platforms under the guise of scientific payloads. These satellites formed the backbone of the Hammer network, positioned to provide near-global surface coverage with overlapping fields of fire. The satellites were controlled via hardened ground stations, most notably the Tyra Strategic Defense Grid beneath Jacinto Plateau. These uplink facilities didn't just relay targeting data, they also synchronized orbital positioning, maintained power cycles, and updated targeting protocols. The network was designed with redundancy, but not resilience. Once the Locust War began, key uplinks were destroyed by surface raids or Locust tunneling assaults. The first major compromise occurred when the Locust targeted the East Barricade Academy's uplink array, severing real-time access to 5 satellites. Later, in Gears 2, the assault on Landone caused catastrophic damage to buried data lines tied to the central hammer grid. By this point, satellite access had dropped below 30%. In response, the COG tried to develop portable uplinks and autonomous command modules. These stopgap systems worked in limited engagements, like the Alima City operation, but couldn't support the scale of planetary warfare. By Gears 3, many satellites remained intact in orbit, but their firing protocols were locked behind corrupted command nodes or inaccessible encryption keys. In Gears 5, Baird's satellite relaunch mission doesn't just restore firepower, it reboots parts of the command architecture. Using AI systems and reverse-engineered launch tech, he re-establishes partial control over surviving satellites. This allows field units to resume use of the hammer, but with significant gaps in coverage, cooldown delays, and risk of misfire. Critically, this shows that the Hammer of Dawn was never just a weapon, it was a system. Satellites, uplinks, AI targeting, and encrypted command paths all had to work in sync. And once that system began to break down, no amount of remaining firepower could compensate. The Hammer of Dawn stands as one of the most advanced weapons ever fielded by the coalition of ordered governments. Conceived during an arms race, perfected in secrecy, and deployed in desperation, it represents the peak of orbital warfare in the Gears universe. Its power lies in precision, projecting force from orbit with devastating accuracy. But that power is dependent on infrastructure, satellites, uplinks, and constant technical maintenance. Once those links fail, the system collapses, no matter how lethal the hardware remains. Across the Locust War and beyond, the hammer shifted from strategic deterrent to tactical asset, and finally to a relic of a decaying military network. Its return in Gears 5 isn't a triumph, it's a patch job. A reminder that the cog, out of options, still clings to old firepower because building something new would take more than they have left. In the end, the Hammer of Dawn is a weapon that works best in theory. When the skies are clear, the uplinks stable, and the enemy exposed. But war on Serra was never that simple, and neither was the technology built to fight it.